ప్రేమ స్వరూపులారా, ప్రేమ స్వరూపులారా.
At the professional level, Dr. Conjeevaram is a professor of medicine in the Division of Gastroenterology in the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Minnesota. In addition to patient care, he has been actively involved in clinical research and in education, both in the USA and internationally. He's won numerous local, regional, and national awards for education, humanism and medicine, and community service. Today, Dr. Conjeevaram will be speaking to us all about the joy of service, and following his talk, there will be a Q&A session. I kindly ask that everyone please hold their questions until that time. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Conjeevaram to our virtual podium.
Sai Ram, everyone, my humble pronouns at the Divine Lotus Feet. It's an incredible honor to be with you all and to share my experiences, how I have always looked at service in my life growing up. I would like to share my screen. Once again, my humble pronouns. As brother Shiva was talking about his experiences, and I think one of the things for all of us to keep in mind as we go through this journey of service, we have so much to learn from each other, and I think it's important for all of us. Each one of us have our own experiences in life which got us to thinking about a service. Today, I'm not here to teach. I just wanted to share my thoughts and how I look at it. My personal motto has always been inspire and be inspired. I think we take inspiration from others, but we also have to have that self-confidence. We can actually inspire others as well, without any ego, of course, as Swami always says. Having that the confidence, and I think it really kind of gets us not only to serve others, but also help each other and learn from each other as well. My humble prayer is to always stay connected with Swami and his teachings every single moment of our lives. As we go through the journey of thinking about service, to me, it's always about following the heart, our heart. Swami says, love for the love's sake. I like to think of service, do service for service, because your heart is telling you to do so. Swami on several occasions has said, when you look at the others, there are others who are less fortunate, more suffering than you. Think of it that way, and then it will kind of prompt you to do more service. To me, it's important. To me, that's kind of the first step. I think all of us here should go to the next step, and that is do service for service sake, because we want to, not that we have to. That's very important to keep in mind, because that's really where we not only connect, and Swami always talks about at the end of the day, you have to see the divine in all, and for that you need love, love, love. And if we think of service in that way, it will come back to that. It will come back to recognizing the divine in all. So Swami says service is one of the most difficult paths, but at the same time, it's the best path in terms of reaching that very easily in our lives. Somewhere along the way, I think it's very important for us as we think about helping others, to have that faith and complete surrender. We think of it and give total surrender to Swami. He will make things happen. And all of us have examples in our lives that we have gone through where that surrender has helped us a great deal to go to the next step of being able to help our sisters and brothers. This is a wonderful quote I like from Mahatma Gandhi. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Swami once, in an interview room with the doctors, he was going around asking everyone, what he was giving everyone what they wanted. Someone asking for rings, he was giving them rings. I knew exactly what I wanted to ask Swami. But for a brief moment, as he was giving rings and all that, the mind, the Maya sets in, and I'm thinking, maybe I should ask for a ring because I know he was going to give it to me. But I felt that I have to kind of come back to what my heart was really telling me from the beginning to ask him. So my turn came, and Swami says, what do you want? And I said, I want to serve you, Swami, for the rest of my life. And he said, why? And I said very casually, it makes me happy, Swami. And he said, happiness is external. What you're feeling is joy, the joy within that comes from inside. That's why you want to serve. To me, I can never forget that. Whenever I think of something, what following my heart, I always think about, that joy Swami is always talking to us about. Brother Shiva was talking about, the inspirations we have in our lives. Always, keep an open mind, keep an open eye to everything around us. You never know who's inspiring us. In this regard, to me, probably one of the the most influential people in my life over the years who have inspired me and influenced me to be and to do better are our young adults. I think there's something about our young adults, who teach us so much, and I think it's very important for us to keep listening to them and watching them, to see while supporting them at the same time. My own father was tremendous influence on me. This was even before I knew about Satya Sai Baba. He was always giving. He used to give things of what I had. When I was young, I used to be, very upset that my father was giving away, quote unquote, my things, right? Then later on, I find myself doing exactly the same. He used to, both my parents are doctors. He used to literally have call people from the street during the flu season and give them flu shots. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And our garage in India was pretty much the home of his patients. Patients used to come from all over the place to see him, and they didn't have a place to stay. And, he used to tell them to stay in our garage. They used to, every day, almost every other day, I come back from school, I used to see these people. I have no idea who these people are, cooking in the garage, living there, quote unquote, which, I felt very strange at that time, but I could see that, he was thinking about, just, helping others. So it was a very tremendous influence for me. My father passed away when I was pretty young. And, our Swami has now become my divine father, my constant source of inspiration and giving. I truly believe that, when we give, we receive, even more, much more than we ever gave. So it's very important for me. Serving Swami and others, has been a lifetime blessing. When I say that, I always think about the opportunities. All of us are given opportunities. We're not always aware of them. We don't make ourselves aware of them. We're looking for some big opportunity to come through. Every single moment, I think, there's an opportunity. We just need to recognize that and just kind of go with it. And it's in this context when we are doing this, people recognize that, and they're also influenced, even if they're not thinking about it, if they're watching you, looking out for opportunities and serving others, they recognize that in you, and it's an incentive, it's an impulse for them to do the same as well. Swami, as you know, has said, no joy can equal the joy of serving others. And this in my life has been such an important principle. I always think about, that what he has told me about, the joy of service. To me, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's always about, following our heart, from a very young age, watching my father, something is just that inner feeling. And I think Swami has influenced. Swami influences us even before we actually know him. I've known him in real life, right? He's been driving our lives even before we knew about him in person. When I was young in the dorms, in high school, there was a huge cyclone in India, and everything came to a standstill. I couldn't even go home because all the roads were destroyed. So we were stuck in the dorms. And one day, I think I was in my 11th grade, I think. They made this announcement in the dorms that, truckloads of people were going to help in the villages, which were all destroyed, to help them kind of, build the houses, clean the debris and, build some house, things. I said, okay, I'll get on the truck. I've always been very impulsive in that. I've actually left home to do things like this, even without telling my parents. It was, I wouldn't advise anyone to do that. So I got into this truck, and we were kind of going there and kind of cleaning up things. And I see this Jeep coming towards us, and out of that Jeep, stepped out, Mother Teresa. I mean, to me, I use this as an example because, when you do something, when you follow your heart to do something with absolutely no expectations in mind, just doing it because your heart is telling you, incredible things happen in our lives. And here is Mother Teresa. She was kind of hopping from one village to another, encouraging all the volunteers to do service, to do what they're supposed to do. As you know, Mother Teresa has always talked about getting out of that comfort zone. Think of that person in front of you rather than think of you first. We always sometimes do things out of convenience, but she says, think of that person right away. And it's been a tremendous influence. At that time, I didn't recognize the influence, but today I always think about that incredible experience about how much we can do just by following our heart. And this was some time ago. And, again, this was a very unique experience for me. The first international Sai medical conference was held in Prasanthi Nilayam some time ago. And I actually went there as a delegate. I was not part of the organizing team or anything like that. I went to Prasanthi Nilayam, and then I was kind of, trying to get ready, this yearning to do something, I wanted to kind of do some volunteer work. Yeah. So I'm kind of looking around, and I see this team of people. These were the people in the registration, and I kind of walked into the room and I said, hey, can I help? And I think this is very important for all of us as well. If you have that yearning, just say it, just ask for it, and don't expect people to ask you. If you want to, just ask. There's absolutely nothing wrong in asking, hey, can I help? So I asked, and they said, of course, brother, so I got really involved, and, and the next thing I know, I'm kind of doing more and more things. Here, as you can see in the picture, all of us were in suits. We were told, and there was, I don't know, a few thousand doctors from across the globe who came for this conference. All the people from most countries other than India, we actually were wearing suits. This was in September. It was so hot in Kulwant Hall. We were just sweating, but, we were wearing these suits. We're all, sitting on the ground. Before Swami came, he sends word. He said, how can you let the doctors sit on the ground? Put chairs. I mean, believe it or not, within, 15, 20 minutes, these 1,000 chairs just came. These volunteers just brought out, these chairs from I don't know where. And the next thing we know, we were all sitting in chairs, and then Swami kind of walks in, and kind of blesses, all of us. And as the conference was being done, Swami recognized in the conference, who were organizers, right? and I was one of them. So here I use this as an example because here is someone, I just went as a delegate. I had no part in the organization, the planning or anything, but I just followed my heart. I wanted to do something. I did it, and and here is Swami actually presenting me a memento. All the other people were actually part of the organizing team even before they came. And I think it's important for us, and it's nothing small, it's nothing big. Anything we do to help anyone is a service, and that's big for them. It might feel very small for us, but it's big for them. And I think that's very, very important for us to keep in mind. Not quantify based on what we are thinking, just think of the quantification of what they're actually experiencing. That simple words of love, we've all experienced this, right? And it has tremendous, it multiplies several fold the impact that they have on the person or a brother or sister that we're trying to help. That's, because we want to help. Several years ago when the Katrina hit in US, I always like to talk about this service because I was not part of it. It was really our young adults across the country who started this. They saw the organization being very slow at that time, trying to do something to the affected people in Mississippi and other states in the US. They took it upon themselves to lead this a project, and they needed some adults to kind of help them, and they needed a doctor because a lot of people were displaced. So I'm like, I'm ready. So and they, young adults are very amazing, right? They know how to link it with each other. They know how to link. It's something we have to learn as adults. But the beauty of that linkage, that is, connecting, is that you can do much, much more. And I think we all have to learn that as adults, is to try to connect and not kind of work in our own silos. This was Katrina was a great example to me personally. So I went there with them, and I was going to volunteer, and this is again, where, at least in our country, in the US, every state has its licensing rules. You can't just go and, serve people, do medicine anywhere. But during calamities, they will allow, some states will allow, but you still need to get a license, actually. That usually takes not as long as a typical license, but, a few to several days. So I had to get medical license to practice in Mississippi because that's where I was going. So I filled out the form and I called them, and this was on I believe on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and I was actually leaving Friday to go to Mississippi. And that lady said, the earliest you're going to get is 3 business days. That will get me into Monday or so. And I said, no. I need it now, because I'm going tomorrow. She says, absolutely not. So back and forth, pleading, again, as we're doing this, we consciously or subconsciously are praying to Swami, like we're begging to Swami, right? And then she said, just, fill out the form or whatever. I said, okay, most likely I'm not going to go. That thought always runs into your mind, believe it or not. Within about half an hour or so, she calls me and she says, go check your fax machine. And my license was there. And I think it was a beautiful example of what seems to be the, just cannot happen, will happen. Swami makes it happen. Here is, someone who's telling me I have to wait 3 days and miss my trip. And she's sending me a note, calling me personally in about half an hour saying, just look at it. I just sent you something. Such a beautiful example. So I go there, and it was I didn't understand that impact when I actually went to this place to help. On that particular day, apparently, they had all these volunteers and nurses, medical students, and everyone. And there was no doctor that day. And they were wondering, they could not operate that day. And the minute I walked in, that guy was running it thought it was a miracle, which, it is a miracle. It was a miracle. He said, because you came, now we can actually work that day. Just that connecting that dots, sometimes it doesn't connect right away. But I think along the way, these dots do connect in our lives. I think we have to just have that faith that we may not be able to connect the dots right away, but they will connect at some point. That implicit faith we have to have, when we're thinking about, serving our brothers and sisters, wherever we are in whatever form. And, and Swami says, we don't have to use the word organization or even talk about him. And this was, to me, was a perfect example. And I think sometimes we get so caught up on our labels, and we have to have a big sign. We have to kind of tell them that we are part of this Sai organization. It will come. People will ask. It will come. We don't have to make that extra step. Or that does not have to be a prerequisite for us to serve somewhere. And I think all of us, it's important to kind of keep that in mind, because it will come. They will recognize, that Swami's love. And this was at the end of the trip. This reverend, who you can see in the picture, gave this impassionate speech. We were all in tears, actually. And he said, I don't know who you are and where you came from, but I know for sure the Lord sent you. We have been praying to our Lord to come to our aid, and He has brought Jesus to us today. And I think it was a perfect example of when people see us help, they see the divine in us. They see the divine, whoever their divine form is. It's helping them, actually. There's a perfect example. As you can see, there was, no mention from us. Of course, he knew that we are part of an organization, but it's just a name for them, right? But the next time they know exactly who we are. We shouldn't be expecting them to know who we are or the organization. Before we haven't even done any work. So that's something kind of important for us to keep in mind. Haiti was an incredible trip. We have had, people from Canada come to Haiti, from all over US, Canada, Central America, South America. It was a beautiful, beautiful journey from Zone 1 when the Haiti earthquake happened. Here again, it was a perfect example of how young adults rallied each other and organized trips. We had, as you know or may not know, we had a team going from Zone 1 every single week, except I believe Christmas week, I think, for more than a year, actually. It's one of the longest projects that we have ever done. It also showed us that we can do it if we kind of come together. It was really a partnership. And this is very important. I think one thing I've learned through this effort was, when we partner with people, who are like-minded, have the same love, but it's important that we maintain our principles, our guidelines, our Swami's teachings when we do our work. It's very, very important to kind of keep that in mind. We can do much, much more. We actually, work with the Direct Relief International, United Nations, the World Foundation, and so many doctors and nurses and pharmacists from across the Zone 1, in the Sai community. It was really, truly a beautiful experience. One of the things is that as we were working, there were so many miracles that happened during this journey. I'm not going to go into them as much as, but I did want to talk about something. Earlier I said, when we serve Swami, people see the divine, in us, that divinity that they connect with. So here, this was in my second week there. As I was, one of the two volunteers, we were working out of two churches, orphanages, with churches connected with them. And the two main volunteers we were working with, they said, Dr. Hari, we're having Sunday services today. Would you like to join us? I said, of course, So I go to the Sunday service, and they had all these guests priests, as well from different churches, in Haiti. The services began, and each one of them, these guests, along with the main priest of that church, were giving different speeches. It was done, and then I thought, the singing and all that will start, and then the reverend from the church gets up and he says, "Today we have a guest speaker who's going to give us the main sermon, for the Sunday session." Everyone thinking, God, I think everyone has spoken already. Who is this guest that I actually don't see? And he says, today is going to be, his name is Dr. Hari. He's going to give us the sermon, for the Sunday. I've been to a church, but beyond that, I've never given a sermon. I've listened to some sermons, but I've never given one. I'm not a priest, or I'm not even a Christian. But what that example was, that it doesn't matter. When people recognize what we do, when we love them and, look at them as equals and serve them as equals, they see that divine. So here is someone who had no clue who I was, what my background was, but they truly believed that I was in a position to give them that sermon. Now, so here I am in the front stage, and there's a translator next to me. And here I'm thinking, obviously nervous, like, what do I do? What do I say? In that moment of fear, I'm thinking of trying to remember every quote of Swami that came to my mind. I was talking about love all, serve all, help or hurt never. But I was kind of, keeping it in such a way. And like every few minutes, this group, like in the church, especially when you go to the South, at least in the US, some of the churches, they all get up and start saying hallelujah. So like every few minutes as I was speaking, they're all getting up in these hundreds of people and saying hallelujah. But it was a very unique experience, again, showing that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, people see the divine. And I think we have to have that confidence within us that people are able to see that divinity within us every time we serve, no matter how big or how small the service is. Kazakhstan, we have been to former the Soviet Union several times. We are very much present. The organization is present there in different activities over the years, and I have the wonderful opportunity to go there. Such loving people, and it was a very similar situation like the license I was talking about. Here in Kazakhstan, you have to, most countries, you have to have a license. You have to get the visa, and this was on Tuesday, I applied for the visa because they said you can get it in 3 days. So I was very, very happy. And then I get this text from them, email from them saying, well, because I was leaving that Saturday morning, said, your visa will arrive Monday. I'm like, no, I'm actually have to leave on a Saturday, So it turns out, for Kazakhstan, Wednesday doesn't count. They need 5 weekdays. Wednesday doesn't count because Wednesday is reserved for the Kazakh people and not US citizens. So it's like, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday. So I'm not going to get my visa till Monday. So Tuesday, I sent this barrage of emails, text, voicemails to these people in the Kazakh embassy, US embassy of Kazakhstan in Washington, DC. When they come back to work on Wednesday morning, they're seeing all these messages from this Dr. Hari Conjeevaram. They panicked. The guy calls me even before I could call them because I was so busy because I have clinic on Wednesdays. And I get this voicemail, and then I'm like, and the guy is calling me, please call, it's urgent. And they were so overwhelmed with my messages, they thought I was, nerve-wracking, or they felt sorry for me, I think. And the guy said, I really need my visa by Friday because I'm leaving first thing Saturday morning. He tried telling me, not till Monday. And then finally he said, do you have any friends in New York? I said, of course I have. He said, tell your friend to come Thursday morning, and I'll see what I can do. So I immediately called, this is on a Wednesday, I called one of our Sai brothers and said, can you please go to the US Embassy in New York? And when he went, apparently, this guy was actually waiting for for our Sai brother to come, and he handed over the visa, and our brother, overnighted it to me, and I got it on a Friday. It was a perfect example. And before as this was happening, you probably know, Dr. Upadhyay in London. He's very involved, such an inspiration to me. I called him and I said, Dr. Upadhyay, it ain't gonna happen. It doesn't look like I'm coming. He says, he said, please keep trying. And the next morning, that Wednesday, as this was all going on with the visa people, Dr. Upadhyay calls me and he says, Hari, this morning I was in the puja room. I had this vision next to Swami. In that vision, I saw the camp. In that camp, you are in the camp. So you are coming. This was before I actually got my visa. It was so profound, and and Swami is kind of making this happen. And I think it's a good example of never give up, have the faith, don't worry about the result. If he wills, if he thinks it's the right thing for us, he will make it happen. But that's the result, and I think we cannot act based on the result. We have to act based on what we want to do, our yearning, actually. And I think that's really where things will work out. And I kept this slide because it was a very powerful experience with this lady that you see in the photograph. It was an older lady who came. I was supposed to be just seeing, like, I'm a gastroenterologist by profession, and she said, she has some abdominal pain. Can you see her? I said, of course, you can see her. But it turns out that she wanted to speak about her entire life. She had a lot of problems with depression and other things. Here is something, and I think one of the best services we can do for each other is listen. This is a service retreat, and when we think about service, I don't think we should get caught up in going out and serving. Service means so many things for each one of us, and all of us are serving in our own way. Everything is service. At the end of the day, if we can connect ourselves and see that divine in all, Swami talks about that is what true surrender means. That is service. He says there's the same, actually. So listening. So here, me and my Russian young adult, who was my translator, we were just listening, right? We were just listening. I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes later, because there are patients waiting as well. But listening is important. She gets up and she looks at each one of us, and this is exactly what she said. I want to let you know that I see love in your heart and peace in your eyes. And I think that impact that she had by us just listening to her, what she had to go through, in her own life, really influenced her. And, both of us were in tears as she was telling us that. That is the impact that we can have on others. Never underestimate ourselves, not in an egoistic way. Ego should never be part of the equation at all, actually, anything that we do, as we know. But this was a profound experience, actually. Being a doctor, obviously, I've had this incredible opportunity to do a lot of services in so many parts of the world, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Ecuador, in so many places. Hopefully another day I can share, a lot of the miracles that happen in all these places. But one of the things we've been involved over the years has been, medical camps in Prasant and Eliam. Truly another way of looking at the impact of service. And in these camps, it's not just doctors, but volunteers, nurses, doctors, pharmacists, everyone, non-medical people. That's the thing about any medical work, you need volunteers. And one of the things that Swami has always taught us is that see Swami in every guest, that is every patient who comes in. And that's very, very important for all of us, actually. And I think that through that, we can see so much. We learn so much. And Swami always used to, bless, all the volunteers. he used to send us vibhuti packets, when we have morning prayers. Invariably, every single day, especially the first day, the garlands, no matter how tight we put them, they all fall. He's showing his omnipresence and his loving nature, actually. So he's blessed us, through the years. He's given us, so many opportunities. And one day, he always used to come and speak with the lady doctors, lady volunteers, and not the men. And one day, the lady doctors talked to Swami and said, Swami, how about the men? They're kind of sitting there trying to kind of make a case for us. And this is an important point, I think. None of us should be trying to connect others with Swami. I mean, I think it's naivety on our part that we can connect, link them, introduce, of course we can introduce them through our love, but we cannot link them, connect, give a card and tell Swami, please talk to this guy or whatever it is, right? And I think that's very important to kind of keep in mind, because when we get closer to Swami in any form, we can influence that connection. I've learned that we should never be the case, and it's not going to work that way anyway. And so when the lady doctors said, "What about men?" He said, "Why do you worry about men? I'll take care of them." But one of the important things he told all of us one day is that the very opportunity. So this is, we crave for this physical aspect of it. We used to, at least, even now, right? A dream, so manifestations. But he said that opportunity to serve is my pada namaskar to you. And I think it's such a profound statement. Every single moment in our lives, we have to look out for opportunities. And if we think about every opportunity as a pada namaskar, we can do much, much more in our lives. Every time there's an opportunity, think of, this is my pada namaskar to Swami. That's going to drive us to do much, much more. This is such a profound statement. Swami has blessed us, all with. And so one of the things during this is that he used to kind of come around, and he knows everything. We used to have the opportunity to give reports to Swami, and one day, we were showing him a report, and he looked at the number of patients we showed him that particular day. I can't remember the exact number. I think it was like 896 or something. And he said, no, it's 899. It was just a matter of 3 extra people. And we're like, no, here we're all thinking, I counted these myself. That ego sets in. After this conversation with Swami, we go back to the room and we recounted them. It was exactly what he said. So here he's teaching us something, right? Do your work correctly. It's not that he craves for numbers. It's quality and not quantity. But at the same time, he also wants us to have that discipline, that doing it correctly as well. That's very, very important to keep in mind. I was one of the fortunate people who was involved in setting up the gastroenterology unit at the super specialty hospital. Just the journey to that is itself, it'll take an hour just to describe the miracles and the journey to what happened. But once, Swami, after several months, I think almost 6 months, he actually came to the super specialty hospital. So that was a big thing for everyone that particular day in the hospital. But he also came to inaugurate the gastroenterology unit. And I had this unique opportunity to take Swami from room to room in the department and show him. And, when he came, usually he lights just one of the wicks. But that particular day, he was very insistent to light all the 6. He kept telling the boy to turn it so that he could light each one of them, actually. And then we took him around. It was a very beautiful experience. And then after that, I decided to stay about 3 months in Prasanthanilayam. I told my boss in Michigan that I'm going away for 3 months. So I was there in 3 months. And, this is another example of how when we do our part, when we give, Swami gives us so much. And during the, this is again part of the inauguration, it was really beautiful. During the next 3 months, because I was working quite late every day, and I also had to do my university work because the Wi-Fi was only in the hospital. So by the time I came back to Prasant, to the mandir every day, Swami's darshan was already over. I barely had time to get some food, and then the day started again. So during those 3 months, I hardly saw the physical Swami. But during those 3 months, I had no idea who these people were. They knew I was there. They were inviting me and giving them their precious things in their lives that Swami had given to them. And this is very important for us to kind of keep in mind, that selfless nature of giving. That is, that's also very important. We hang on to these things, even things that Swami gave us. Of course, they're very, very precious to our hearts. But if we all can share them, that as we share our love, but everything that, it's such a beautiful experience, I think. There was this lady, there's quite a few ladies over the years. I call them Gopikas, they used to just run away from home, that spend like, a week or two with Swami, and over the years, she has collected these original black and white photos, a bead necklace that Swami blessed and gave her. She collected sand that he walked on. She's giving me these. She says, I don't need them anymore. These are yours. So here I am getting all these things, and hopefully one day I can give to one of you as well, these things. It's things that, I'm not sure if I deserve them, but she was giving, she was sharing. That's the beauty of this, I got vibhuti packets that Swami gave them to me. One of the doctors gave me, a lock of Swami's hair that he had to me. So I was getting all these things, what a unique blessing. And I think Swami was kind of showing, yes, you're not seeing me physically, but these are my blessings. And I think it's very, for us to kind of share. I always think of that as and this was a very unique thing. This was the last birthday before his physical body left us, and it was very beautiful that day, because it was the last day. That particular morning, he sent vibhuti packets to all of us, and then we thought, what such a blessing. And then he sent a word asking us that we need to come to the mandir. So here we are sitting inside, and there were so many other programs which were planned for that day, but he spent the entire time that day in Kulwant Hall with us, and then he left. Said Arati and he left. So it was very beautiful, because he came to each one of us individually and personally gave us vibhuti packets. He went back to the front, came back to each one of us individually once again, and talked to us, or Pada Namaskar. It was a beautiful event at that particular day. Love gives. Swami always says, love is God. God is love, and I think any form of service comes back to love, and that is God. So it's the same. It's very similar to our surrender that we have been kind of talking about. And in this context, recognizing that divine in others, being an example, and sharing. And I just wanted to share with you two very profound experiences. So when I was there for 3 months, at the end, I was taking care of this gardener, and he appreciated so much that love he felt from me. I think he was moved, I think. So the last day, or a few days before I was leaving, he walks into my room, extremely shy. He didn't know what to say. And here I'm thinking he was coming for a consultation. I was trying to tell him what's going on, what's wrong, and all that. He says, nothing is wrong, doctor. And then I'm asking, so why are you here? Very shyly, he takes from his pocket a photo of Swami that Swami gave him personally a few months prior to. I mean, that was the most precious thing. That was the first time he actually got something from Swami physically. And here it is, he wants me to have it. That to me was, that's true love. That sharing of what we have with others, whatever it is. I was in tears because, how else can that, can you explain true love, right? It was such a beautiful moment. And I think it's important, and we give and others give us. And I think that's part of the whole experience. One day in this context, I was talking to someone and I said, this was several years ago. I said, I reached a part of my life that, I'm willing up to give everything to Swami. I truly meant it, actually. And I think that there was no fear in that, losing your life or whatever it is, and I meant it. What made me say it, I have no idea. That night I get this dream. In that dream, I'm sitting inside the mandir. Bhajan started. It was so loud, but I'm the only one sitting in that corner. Swami walks gently through the crowd. He comes to me. He puts his hand over me. He starts waving his hand. And vibhuti just starts pouring and pouring and pouring. I'm completely drenched in vibhuti, and he just leaves. To me, it was such a profound experience, because he said, and I felt that, how can we be in that state of total surrender every single moment of our lives, and the bliss that you can actually experience from that? It was very important. And as earlier I was talking about how we influence others. One of my nurses, my work email is omsairam@umich.edu. And my nurse one day told me, she has no idea about Sai Baba and all that. She said, but people recognize our true nature in how we conduct ourselves. She said, patients are always calling me, they're yelling at me, angry with me. And she said, anytime I always used to get so upset, but nowadays, when a patient is yelling at me, she said, I just say, Om Sai Ram. Why is that? She said, because when I say that out loud, I think of you. I know how calm you are, how loving you are to patients. I want that energy to come to me. And she just keeps saying, Om Sai Ram, Om Sai Ram. And she says, it doesn't affect me at all these days. And it's such a profound example. I just wanted to kind of show this. I think earlier I talked about connecting the dots, our young girls are amazing. And I was just using this as an example. This is something the YAs, they're trying to they formed this platform, what they call the YA Service Task Force, dealing with two things, homelessness and malnutrition in the US. And they're really trying to connect themselves, trying to figure out resources, bring everything together in one platform so they can help each other. On one side, help solve the problem where the need is, but the other time, it's a way of transforming ourselves. And I think as we all think about service, really thinking about, coming together, and today's program is one such thing, where we come share ideas, but how do we help each other? You can help me with this. I need this help. How can you all help me cumulatively as a cumulative group, actually? Okay. I always think, whenever I think of, I'm almost done. I think of, to me, this is my personal thing, we should keep our service directed, give based on need. Mindfulness is something I've been practicing, regularly these days. What I mean by this, that the best form of service, I talked about listening, give 100% to the work that we are doing, being mindful. There's so many distractions these days, including the stress of work and all that. Unconditional, never expect anything. To me, each time we expect a result, it's a slippery slope. So anything that we want is, because we always tend to talk about results. Of course, they're important in some way, but whatever we plan, let that not be. See God in all, that's total surrender. That's following our heart. But to me, service is part of that. And as I mentioned, look out for opportunities. There's so many every single day, actually. Swami said, I have come to teach you the proper attitude of service, for love expresses as service and God is love. Service to man leads to the discovery of man as God. I always used to think, these days what I do is that when I see someone, anyone, even if I know them or don't know them, the first thing I do is that think of, hey, God is in them. That's how I start my thought process. Not wait for something to happen. Am I going to like this person or not? Then I'm going to see the divine. I'm jumping in these days thinking God is already there. Swami said, divine is there. Let me start with that as the first, like immediate, anytime that I see them, then everything becomes more loving, actually. Same thing with service that we want to do. This is very, very important for all of us. This is something I like to end my talk with. I always do this. There's so much going on in this world for all of us. There's so much to do, a lot of opportunities. No matter how the world looks to us, have that hope. Along the way, faith and surrender are the key. But at the end of the day, it's all about love, and that is service. Thank you so much for this incredible honor to be with you all and sharing my thoughts. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Dr. Conjeevaram, for such an inspiring talk. And something I personally took away was just, how simple it is to give, right? As you said, we can find ways to be of service at any moment, so long as we, follow our heart and take that first step of offering our help and our love. Now, as promised, I would like to open the floor to all those who may have a question for Dr. Conjeevaram. If you have a question, you can use the raise hand feature, and I'll call upon you each at a time. But for those who perhaps, prefer not to use the microphone or cannot use the microphone, you can also type your question into the chat box, and I'll read it out for you. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody at all? Anyone got a question? Let's see, let me look at the chat box. Oh, I see Sayaka has a question.
Sai Ram, Uncle Harry, thank you for the beautiful talk. It was so inspirational. I think what we all needed at this point in life. One question I have for you, you have done amazing work. You continue to do amazing work. Being a YA, some comments that, including myself, some YAs have shared is, I find challenges with balancing our worldly duties with Sai work or finding time for seva. And I understand we can do seva of different magnitudes, but what advice or thoughts do you have to share with everyone that might have those challenges?
Absolutely. And I think that's very important, right? We're all doing different things. And I think sometimes recognition that maybe what we're already doing is actually service, in which case, if we don't have time, we don't have to think about doing other things. I actually asked Swami this. People always tell me, oh, you're right, you're doing so many things across the globe, in the different cities and all that, giving me this credit, and it's an artificial ego in one sense. But you have to kind of step back and say, okay, how am I able to do that? Because my family is supporting me, right? If I leave, and I've been doing this for so many years, someone has to take care of the kids, the dog, and who is that? My wife. I mean, that mutual understanding. But going back to your question, I actually asked in the interview, Swami, exactly the same question. Actually, I said, Swami, you always talk about giving priority to what we already commit, right? Work, life, marriage, and I said, how do you look at serving the community? Where does that come in terms of priority? And at that time, Swami said, use your discrimination. He said, sounded good, but I wasn't sure that was the answer that I was looking for at that time. Maybe I wanted him to tell me something. Hey, what you're doing is absolutely fine. I said, where is that balance? When do we, how do we kind of find that balance between serving the community and serving our family and our work? Later on, he was giving a speech, and in that speech, he said, it is true that, what we set out to do, that is, work, married life, family life, we have to commit and do that. But he said at some point in our lives, we have to cross that line to serve the community. It was very profound to me. And I think at any level, we have to kind of step back and think about, the priorities in our lives, or what exactly we want to do. What is our heart telling us? Okay. And ask the question, what is stopping us from doing it today, for example? So kind of break your day and saying, okay, I did my work and all that. And, and I was done by 7 p.m., quote unquote, and I slept at 10. So what exactly was I doing between 7 and 10, and I think you have to kind of self-reflect in your own mind. What are things, and think about, okay, if I really are earning to do something, can I take away some of these things? That's how I look at my life. So things like what might have seemed to be very important to me or others, I'm thinking, I want to do this actually, and be comfortable telling people that's what you want to do, and just do it. I love the logo. Just do it. Just kind of follow. So you have to at some point self-reflect and discriminate and say, what do I want to do? If I have to do this, what do I have to give up? Am I okay with that? I mean, it really comes back to us as individuals. And I think that's, but if you're not able to, don't worry about it. Opportunities will come. And I think you have to kind of step back and think, everything that I'm doing in my life, if I'm being a good person, if I'm connecting to the other person, to the divine, I'm thinking of them as divine, that's awesome service. Actually, it's helping me, it's helping them as well. So we don't have to do anything more beyond that.
Thank you, Uncle. I think we have another question in the chat box from Shivabalan. It says, how can we motivate the YAs, especially across Canada, to participate in the activities in the SSSIO, as we will become future SSSIO leaders, and especially participate in international YA activities such as the SSSILP, especially the last 2 years dealing with the pandemic, which may have led to a loss of motivation?
Yeah, this is my answer. And I think two things. I like to look at it this way. One is, when we talk about the young adults, I think of young adults as the past, the present, and the future, and not just the future or even the present. They were the past, right? I was a young adult and I was serving. So at some point I was a young adult. So I was part of that movement. So just now that I'm an older adult, that doesn't mean, I was not part of that movement when I was a young adult. So I think that's the first thing that we need to think about. Young adults have always, be there. The second thing, I think all of us have to step back and think about, especially the pandemic or even otherwise, what were they doing? Do we actually know what they were doing? I think if we don't know, maybe we shouldn't be asking that question at all, actually. That's important to kind of keep in mind. The pandemic has brought in so much stress, especially among young people. Some have lost their jobs, some have been extremely under a lot of duress mentally, because, for young people, getting out, their social interactions are much, much more important. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. And for all of us, but as adults, we are doing other things. But for young people, I've seen that, whether you're a Sai young adult or otherwise, it's been very tough. And I think if we kind of step back and understand that, and also ask the question, what are they doing with each other? So the lack of motivation within an organization doesn't always translate to that they're not doing anything. They might be doing a lot of stuff that we don't know about. Maybe we should get to know that. I mean, that's something I realized. I never used to think that way, but I've also learned at the same time how much young adults are actually doing. It may not be what we want or what we want them to be part of, but they're actually doing a lot of stuff which are actually helping other people. To me, that's service. That's awesome. Can we learn that? That's how I look at it. But a third part of it is, being the example. We need to be, each one of us, for that matter, whether it's for our own brothers and sisters, YAs for their own brothers and sisters, be the example. Some people are leaders, some people are followers. And we see this in our lives, right? I follow someone because I'm so inspired by someone. At the same time, I might be viewed as a leader for certain things that I do. And I think we need to be very, very open-minded, and also help where they need the help. Are they not doing it because they need some help? And I think it's much more to that question than a simple answer of just me motivating someone. Swami says, right, give people what they need, and not about spirituality. Don't say, come and do this, you'll be enlightened. If somebody is hungry, what's the point of talking about either organization or a service activity or God if you can't feed their mouths? Someone who's in distress, help them. I think so. We all have to step back and really try to understand. To me, and hopefully that will make it better. When people understand, when people know that we are understanding, listening, they will come forward as well. So it goes both ways, I think.
Thank you, Uncle. For the interest of time, I think I'm gonna cease with the questions, but thank you everyone for your questions. I know there's a couple more in the chat. Maybe towards the end we can ask again, but thank you everyone for such incredible questions. As we all know, as we just talked about, it's been a quite trying period with the pandemic. For the most part, we've been holed up in our homes, unable to physically interact with one another, which proved to present a variety of limitations on our regular pre-COVID activities. It goes out saying that this pandemic did have an impact on our regular SAVE activities, but it doesn't mean that we were unable to find ways around these limitations. During a time when the world really needed to unite and work together more than ever, our Sai family was able to find ways to give back to our community. To give a presentation on the various regional SAVE activities we've undertaken during COVID-19, I would like to give a warm welcome to Uncle Sri Seva. I'd like to welcome Sayaka to our virtual podium.
Thank you so much, Anika. My humble pranams at our lotus feet of our dear Lord Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Loving Sai Rams, everyone, respected seniors, uncles, aunties, brothers and sisters. We are so delighted to see everyone join us from across the country. It's truly refreshing after one whole year almost. I hope you're all doing well. I am Sai Thavendran. I am a young adult from Toronto, Ontario. I am so honored to be here today to speak amongst all of you. And I thank Swami and the National Council for this opportunity. My talk today will be called Deconstructing the ABCs of Sai Seva. We had sent out a survey earlier this month regarding topics you would like covered during our workshop today. So I hope that my presentation today is a consolidation of those responses. I apologize in advance. I do have COVID, out of breath, a little coughing here and there, so please do bear with me. I like to start with one of my favorite quotes by Swami. Swami says, "Come just one step forward. I shall take 100 towards you. Shed one tear. I shall wipe 100 from your eyes." This quote always reminds me that Swami is guiding us, protecting us, and always with us. And everything I talk about today is truly Swami's words. I am simply the messenger, just bringing forth his message. We will start with what is selfless service. So just getting right down to the fundamentals. Swami summarizes this in a beautiful quote where he says, "The act of service is not to be judged according to the cost or publicity it entails. Fill every act of yours with love. Let no one suffer the slightest pain as a result of your thought, word, or deed. Let this be your sadhana. It will surely help you achieve the goal." Beautifully said. And so what is selfless service? Swami says this is when we see his cosmic form in others and everything else. It is the true essence of devotion. By serving others, we are truly doing service to ourselves, the God within us and the God within others. Seva is a spiritual discipline for mental cleanup. It is meant for the elimination of ego and purification of the mind. When we serve others, we devote our energy and our attention to the task we are performing. And when we're doing this, we cast away our egos, our individualities, our status, name, form, and this yields to the purification of the mind. And we should always do seva with no ego, but just try to derive unsurpassed ananda from it. Swami says any service can become selfless service when it is performed with the right attitude. Beautifully said by Dr. Harry as well. In selfless service, the motive is to raise consciousness of the divinity through our loving efforts. The spiritual validity of the service is determined by the intensity and the purity of our love when we're doing the service. Our efforts should always reflect that. And it should also be a true response to local needs. Swami says, find out what your community needs and truly serve to respond to that. So what are the forms of selfless service? Some of the forms of selfless service, personally being very transparent, before seeing Uncle Harry's talk, I always thought service activities had to be of something of larger magnitudes, whether it be a tree planting or shoreline cleanups or anything of that large magnitude. But Swami beautifully tells us that this can start with our thoughts, words, and deeds. We don't need to go outside or plan one day a week to go do a service activity if we don't have the time. We could start within ourselves. So we shouldn't judge someone's service or the magnitude of their service. We could start with just talking softly, sweetly, speaking very respectfully to others. And then, of course, nature. We enjoy the fruits of nature, especially those in Toronto right now. We're enjoying the warm weather. But what are we doing in return? And this made me reflect. Am I limiting my ceiling on desires? Am I limiting my use of natural resources? Am I looking at cleaning up in my parks? Am I tree planting? What are we doing in return? It really puts that question in our mind. And of course, service through righteous living. Share our knowledge, share our wealth, share our time with those who need it, serve those who need it. If you're in a position where you have a lot of an abundance of resources, share that with those who have it. Or even if you have a little bit of resources, share it with others. Swami always says, when you do my work, I will do yours. And that is a beautiful example. A personal example I wanted to share is when I finished my undergrad, I thought I was very busy and I was doing some work and someone had called me for some help with an assignment. And at the time I was, I helped her out, but she required a lot more help and I was helping her. And I was so young, I was 22 at the time. And I thought, oh my gosh, my time is going. And so, I just helped her, didn't think much of it. It took much longer, diversion in my plans. But I'd helped her with an honest heart. And then I remember very vividly, 20 minutes later, I got a text message from someone's number I didn't even know. And they asked me, are you still looking for a job at the university? And I said, what? Like, where is this coming from? I didn't even know who was texting me. And I had called that person and they said, I remember you once telling me months ago, this is a colleague I work with who doesn't even have my number. You were looking to teach at a university. They are hiring someone right now. And I thought of you and I thought, I should connect you. And I just thought at that time, when we do Swami's work, he will do our work. He knows what's best for us, but we should put our full attention in serving. Whom do we serve? There's so many people we can serve, but we should really start with ourselves. You're doing seva for your own sake. You're engaged in seva to become aware of the Atma within you. So you're not serving others. You're serving yourself when you are doing volunteer work or selfless service. And remember, you are serving God. You're serving Swami, whoever that God may be for you. Seva must be freed from all attachment to the self and based on the firm faith of God in every being. See Swami or pick your favorite form of God and see the God through them first, and then everything will come naturally. Serve your family. Swami says, no greater service than service to parents. Never hurt their feelings. And of course, those in needs, animals, society. Merge your welfare with the welfare of the world. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. May the world have peace and prosperity. We chant this all the time. Let's put this into practice, as Swami has requested us to. When should we perform service? This was beautifully said by Swami. He says, always be looking around you all the time, even beyond the horizons of your allotted tasks for any chance to serve. They don't have to be something of a larger magnitude. They could be something so small within your household, or you can start within yourself, self-transformation. Start with your words, your thoughts, your deeds, and then you can progress to your family and then to your society. Sometimes it could be something as small as chanting for world peace. There's a war going on between Ukraine and Russia. You could sit at home and chant Namasmaranam. So it doesn't have to be something of larger magnitude, but always be looking for something to do to serve others. There's a beautiful quote I said, Swami says, that I wanted to share with everyone today. It might be applicable to many of us. To plead that no one has time for service activities because of official duties or other preoccupations is an utterly lame excuse. Even in your official work, you can render service. Whatever your official duties, whatever your professional occupation, if you discharge your duties properly and efficiently, that is also social service. What will please Swami is the proper performance of one's duties. This constitutes as service or seva. So how do we perform selfless service? Swami says over and over again, your mental attitude towards service activity is key. Perform seva with compassion, pure love, understanding, and reverence. Engage in constant namasmaranam, remembering God's name while doing the seva. When we do so, we become a true servant of God while serving others, and you continue to see God in others in their true form. Serve others without the expectation in anything in return. Serve anyone, serve the elderly, serve those. Sometimes they might have lots of wealth. You don't have to necessarily find someone who is homeless or doesn't have wealth. They might have lots of wealth, but they might not have happiness. So there's different people, but serve those who are in need. Serve the God in others, as Swami says, and begin with yourself. Swami says not to ask others where they come from, their nation, their ethnicity, their religion. He asks us to see his image in the person we serve. Choose your favorite form of God in that other person and see that God in the person. Duty is God. Work is worship. Even if the tiniest work is a flower placed at the feet of the God. Why should we engage in service? There's so many benefits to why we should engage in selfless service. It helps us control and purify our mind. It puts a ceiling on our desires. It removes the ego. There's so many, but the ultimate goal of selfless service is to awaken the divinity within us and realization of God. Of course, these are all the fundamentals in Sai literature on what Sai service is and selfless service. But really, what are the barriers that we face to selfless service? Swami says these are some common obstacles that one might come across when engaging in service activities. Ego, attachment, feeling of doership, feeling of enjoyership. But Swami says, do not pay heed to these. Do what comes to you as a duty, as well as you can. With prayer to God, the rest is in his hands. And it comes back to the beautiful point mentioned in Uncle Harry's talk, surrender. Surrender to Swami. Your work will be done. There is so many times during when we used to go to bhajans, we live really far from our bhajan center, so we would have to commute about an hour to go to bhajans. So when I was in university, my dad used to tell me bhajans first and then anything else. And I used to think my dad, like, he didn't know what he was talking about, because I would have an essay to finish and I thought, no, I have to go to the library, I have to finish my essay. Of course, I wait till Sunday morning to finish the essay. But my dad would tell me, no, you have to go to Bhajans. So I'd go to Bhajans, and then I would take the subway to the university library, and I would study. And I promise, whenever I do Swami's work, I have trouble writing essays, and sometimes my hands will just flow, and I just write. I don't think much of it. I finished the essay, and I remember I got the essay back, and I did really well on the essay. And I looked at the writing. Everyone has a style of writing they recognize, and I looked at it, I said, this is not my style of writing. This is way beyond me. And I knew this is Swami's work. And that's when I truly realized, when you do Swami's work, he will do your work. So truly surrendering to Swami. And now I want to move forward. I want to encourage, we're all here today because we love doing seva. And there are some barriers and some challenges and obstacles that we've experienced as a result of COVID and, centers being closed for 2 years. So I encourage you to reflect on your barriers to selfless service. And I encourage you to do this through 2 different lenses, through a personal lens as well as an Sai Center lens. Because if we don't identify our barriers, we won't fix them and we won't progress towards the next step. So this is a very transparent blurb of my barriers. So from a personal level, I have poor time management, prioritizing, commitment. Sometimes I think, like I said, quantity over quality. Sometimes I lack motivation. And a reinforcement of Sai literature. And I think the biggest sadhana I had done in a while is really exploring Sai literature to come up with this presentation, because it really helped me understand that I don't have to do something big, and everything I do every day can be considered as seva activities. No one is here to judge, but if I have the right attitude and I approach my day-to-day activities, treating my parents with love and respect, everything will be considered as seva, and that's the fastest way towards God. And of course, on a Sai Center level, we were all struck with COVID. And sometimes, we should have emphasis on other wings. So, service that focuses on the educational wing or devotional wing, that would be, tailoring to different sorts of devotees. And of course, virtual seva opportunities for our YAs who might be away for university. So moving forward, how do we support our centers when we come back and collectively get together to do service activities? So needs assessments are commonly well recognized in lots of community program developments. So a needs assessment would be very appropriate to understand what seva activities would be most appropriate to address the local needs of my community, or where your center is. So I encourage you all to go ahead, take this forward to your centers and give it a try. So step 1 includes planning a community needs assessment. So this would include understanding what is a community. Are we defining a geographical community? Is it like a cultural, ethnic community? Are we looking at a particular age? And going ahead and looking at our resources. How many devotees do you have that is going to volunteer? Are you just starting with yourself? Is it your family because centers are not open? Or are we looking at your Sai center as well? And recognizing the strengths and limitations of your group. Do you have a group of healthcare professionals? Maybe something appropriate to COVID would be very appropriate. Or do you have a group of teacher, homemakers, whatever. Number 2 is conducting a needs assessment. So this can include going out to your community and screening the community. You can look at your local parks, check if they need cleaning. You can go to your local food bank, see if the donations are matching up to the uptake of foods, and seeing if they need to have more foods available to them. You can check online to see the statistics in your community and, is a socioeconomic status a challenge, whatever it may be. There's lots of ways to screen the needs of your geographical or your ethnic community. Of course, step 3 and 4 come together to review and consolidate your data together and looking at, this is what my community needs. These are our local needs. Now, here's our group of 6 YAs, and these are our strengths and limitations. XYZ go to university, far away, so they're not available. We have to think of something virtual. So really understanding what your resources are and matching them and complement your strengths and weaknesses. And of course, developing a Seva action plan and execution. It's always very refreshing when you have, your local needs met, and the devotees and the local residents will definitely appreciate you for that. And then, of course, how do we support devotees to take part in service activities? We're all trying to go back into centers, but how do we reinstill that flame and that fire with everyone to serve again? Although everyone might be serving on a different scale, on different, platforms, but how do we come together and do these activities as a larger group under the Sai banner? Frequent review of Sai literature on service may be very refreshing. Sharing experiences on Seva projects that may motivate other devotees, as well as creating service opportunities via different service wings. So doing something in the devotional wing and then educational wing. And tailoring activities that might serve via different platforms, whether that be in person or virtually, for YAs or adults that might not be physically present here. We can always do something virtually. And ensuring that we, as always, should set good examples and inspiration for our devotees by being examples of Swami's messages, always making sure that our thoughts, words, and deeds and our actions are representing Swami's message and serve as an inspiration to everyone around us. So this brings me to my final point. I went through a lot of fundamentals, Swami's messages, but I really would like to encourage everyone here to break out into rooms. We will get into breakout rooms, but explore these quotes by Swami and explore these challenging questions that would help us move to the next step in our Sai centers. So there's 3 quotes here. They're all said by Swami, and there's corresponding questions. So once we get into our breakout rooms, I encourage you to transparently, honestly talk about these, because when we talk about these challenges, successes, what's worked for one group, we can build a stronger community amongst each other. So I will let us break out into breakout rooms, and I encourage you to pick one question. You have 15 minutes. If you get to the one question, please do explore the other questions as well. We'll connect back after 15 minutes and we will go through our answers. Sairam.
This is Sai. Just a quick question. So maybe let's give everybody a minute to just kind of copy down some of these questions.
Of course,
and then we can do the breakout. There are 48 people and about 50. And so do you want to do groups, 5 groups? It's maybe 6
we could do 5 groups of 10. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll start the breakout rooms in about exactly 1 minute.
Okay, perfect.
And those who are not a computer, you could do a screenshot and take the pictures, take down the questions that way too. Okay, I'm going to start the breakout rooms.
I can just start with my experiences.
Sure.
So my name is Tanmay Praharaj. I'm a volunteer with the Ottawa Sai Center in Ottawa, Canada. Sri Satya Sai Baba Center of Ottawa, Carleton, it's called.
Right.
I, as part of the seniors outreach program and special services and Seva wing at my center, so we do a lot of volunteering in the community. So we and our the people that we serve through, we have 2 key programs. One is We Care, We Share, and the other one is Narayan Seva. As part of that, either we cook meals for the homeless people in the homeless shelters, and there are quite a few in the town, in the downtown area of the city. So we cook food which is pretty simple, like either like chili or pasta, all vegetarian food, prepared fresh by the volunteers, and we go and we serve to the people. And these are the people who live in the shelters, people who don't have a house, who don't have a car, who are under the influence of narcotics, drugs, not in good mental health, didn't have a good family life, or the family they have abandoned them. And their majority are like white Canadian people, but I mean, we do find like most recently, I came across a gentleman who is of South Indian origin. He was a faculty member. He was academician many years back, but then due to the bad turn of events in his life, he ended up and his family having rejected him, he has ended up being in the homeless shelters. That's where he's living. So anyway, I think the easiest is easy to answer, which is the people in need of home, shelter, food, compassion, care. People who are struggling in their life. And regarding who's the hardest to serve, I don't have any thoughts right now. Maybe I'll look to others to share their thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, brother, for that. Very insightful, service activities coordinated by the Ottawa Carleton Center. It's good to hear that it's, you all are not, particularly just one group of individuals. It's all is welcome, which is really important, especially during service activities. So thank you for that. Would anyone else like to share their thoughts?
Hi, this is Partha.
Sairam.
Partha Kaushik, Sairam. To answer directly to the question, we are able to serve more easily those people who we are acquainted with, or rather whose pain we are acquainted with and we are able to empathize with. And so obviously it starts from the family. You see somebody in pain within your own family, you immediately help. Then it extends to the community, and then further. How do we take this further is the question that we should ask ourselves. How do we take this concept of empathy and shared pain, and we need to relieve this pain, and how do we take it forward so that it covers everybody who is in need? And for that, we need to keep ourselves informed. We need to keep ourselves informed of what's happening around us in our communities, in our cities, in our country, and in the world in general. That's one part of Seva is definitely going out and helping personally by contributing physically to relieving the pain of the other. Another way would be to provide material or funds where such activity is going on. More importantly, we have to basically think about what are the causes of the causative factors that cause this pain or suffering to happen, and how can we actually mitigate that. Yeah, these are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle, for that. I guess on that question, would anyone like to share their thoughts on Uncle's question of how we can potentially mitigate these sort of thoughts?
Brother Sai, who were you directing the question to?
Oh, just openly.
Oh, just openly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anybody who wants to
share their thoughts on that.
Share their thoughts. Yeah.
If not, there are a few more questions that came up on the slide. What in particular is, what factors contribute to or can help us towards doing our service projects with pure love? and what factors are obstacles to overcome? I think that's something, I know we touched on the first point of, some of the challenges we may encounter integrating needs assessment. But I think the second part is, what factors contribute or can help us towards, doing service projects with, unconditional love? I think that's the important thing, instead of doing it for the sake of doing it, obviously keeping a needs assessment in mind. How do we do it with selfless, unconditional love? And it's kind of a question where it's a bit of a no-brainer in a politically correct sense. But again, this is an open discussion. We'd love to hear anyone's thoughts.
Brother Sai, maybe I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Brother Siva.
So I think, yeah, it's a good question. I think the second part of the question, I think, is the tough part. The first part of it, what factors contribute to or can help us towards doing our service projects. And if you stop the sentence at that particular point, that itself is the first phase of being able to do service to the community and to do service to anything or at all times. And I think the biggest barrier personally is and for anyone, I think, is how we prioritize our lives. And I think often we prioritize our lives based around ourselves. That we do things based on the fact of what needs to be done in order to be able to satisfy my own needs. Whether or not, waking up in the morning and doing things for the family, and then work and so forth. And so it really does come down to re-questioning or rethinking how we prioritize and schedule the day. And I think it in order to be able to begin to do these service projects, and it does require us to put it at the center, or at least keep Swami at the center of all that we do. And that then, everything else then begins to revolve around it and Swami, rather than, that Swami is now a scheduled part of the day. Then that if Swami, it becomes the focus, then I think then anything that we do then becomes the service project, whether or not if it's at work or anything for that matter. I like to bring up what Dr. Hari had mentioned earlier, the fact that every time that he meets somebody, that he reminds himself that there is an acknowledgement that this is Swami. And I think that itself is a service project. A service, because of the fact that he is, he's seeing Swami, he's reminding himself of seeing Swami in someone else. And I think that is the ultimate purpose of the second part of the question. That is, how do we do this with pure unconditional love? And that, I think, is the first step, is to be able to at least mentally remind ourselves that whom we're serving is Swami himself, that divinity is in all, in everyone. And then, our demeanor perhaps would change in the manner we respond to them and how we treat them, because we are consciously forcing ourselves to see Swami in them. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Siva, for that. I think you touched on a really key point, is self-realization and self-introspection prior to serving. Why are we doing what we're doing? Are we blindly just walking into it and just, oh, uncle told me to come, so I'm going to be there, and just, blindly just serving without, not necessarily a purpose, but serving without asking ourselves, have we done our due diligence? Have we done our duty? Have we filled our lives with love to the point where we can reciprocate that love in, an unconditional manner to others around us, right? So very important point that you touched on. Thank you for that. Would anyone else like to share their thoughts on either that question, or I'll just read out the other questions as well in case some of you may not have heard it. So what are some of the challenges that you may incur integrating a needs assessment into our Sai Serva organizing? And how do we overcome these obstacles? Some factors, as Brother Siva just mentioned, that can help us towards our service projects with Pure Love. And lastly, who is the easiest to serve and hardest and why? And how can we move towards being able to love and serve all with the same purity? So without discrimination in any way, shape, or form. So if any of you have any thoughts you'd like to share, please feel free.
Can I chime in on the easiest
Yeah.
and hardest?
Sure.
This is the easiest to serve within our Sai Center, right? We are there regularly and it kind of comes naturally for you. And so it's a no-brainer. First of all, service should come from within. And to Brother Siva's point, everybody we see as Swami. So that's the easier part of serving within your center. The hardest part is the broader community and addressing the needs of the broader community and how you go about doing that. So, I mean, at Scarborough, we do the same thing as, the feeding the shelter, which we do every weekend, different locations, and sometimes twice a week, Saturday and Sunday. And there's a group of different team leads who are leading it and feeding into that. And each families go and slot into themselves into one spot and feed it. So that's one aspect, but there's obviously more, right? In terms of service, environmental service, cleanups, tree planting, all of those things. That would be a harder, just to focus on that question, that could be the harder one compared to the serving within the center for events and what have you.
Thank you for that, Brother Lux. Sister Stuti, you have your hand up?
Sairam, everyone. I'm new to Toronto and I have been doing Seva back in my hometown, Chandigarh, India. But I have not really experienced, anything in terms of Seva, never had the opportunity to, so I won't be able to comment on the rest of the questions. But as far as serving who's the hardest to serve, I believe from my personal experience is someone who's rude to us, or someone who specifically for myself, someone who triggers anger for me, where I have to maybe first manage my anger and then maybe reflect at the situation. It has personally been very challenging to serve, or I'd say serving in a community or serving outside, and can be more streamlined, can be more phrased in a better manner, because you're all in the environment to be serving. You have the motivation, you have your fellow beings and Swami to guide us. However, when we're maybe in our personal lives with people who are difficult to handle, so serving them, or maybe serving them just with the perspective of speaking softly or not just being rude to them, becomes very difficult at times. Thank you.
Thank you, sister, for that. Brother Raj?
Sairam, I just wanted to add one more point, and I'm not going to expand on this too much. However, we have identified some of the senior families that our youth group had catered to as far as grocery shopping, picking up prescriptions, etc. Now, many of those families have members of their own immediate family taking care of their needs. So that Seva activity has dropped a bit. But I find a good idea is to contact those seniors who are not driving, but still have someone providing the groceries. And what I would say is, I'm at Costco right now. Is there anything you would like? I can pick it up for you. And or I'm at Walmart, etc. I find that invariably they call back and they say, yes, here's my list of things they wouldn't ask their immediate family, but they feel quite comfortable asking me, get me this bag of nuts or dates from Costco that I can't get anywhere else, that sort of thing. Just a hint. Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else like to share a challenge, or should we move on?
Maybe
Sister
we may move
Preeti?
on to the next question. Yeah.
Sairam, did you want me to go on to the next quote, Sister Preeti?
Maybe we just have another couple minutes. We can surely do that.
Swami says, the spiritual validity of the service is determined by the intensity and purity of our love. Our efforts should reflect selfless love at all times to all people. The question, what factors contribute to or can help us towards doing our service project with pure love? Second part of the question, what factors are obstacles to overcome? So what are the factors that contribute towards us doing these projects? Anyone like to contribute?
Saram, Saram, this is Shobhan. Can I speak?
Sure, thank you.
All right. So I would suggest we could definitely I think one thing that we could do that can contribute to doing service projects with pure love, I think would be to start especially with the YAs. Especially we need to involve, especially the last 2 years with the pandemic, maybe as a start to get them re-engaged into our activities. Why don't we involve them into our activity, by taking part in helping in shelters and in homeless shelters and all those places. That way, at least for the start, they can get involved. And they'll be more active in eventually SSIO, and they can go on to participate in more activities. Thank you, sir.
Sarah. Anyone else?
That's a great point, Shiva, and very similar to what Sister was talking about. Is sometimes we have to kind of take that initiative, calling, very similar to what you said, Sister. Is that, hey, I'm at Costco. Can I bring something to you? Here's the same thing. Hey, we actually need help to deliver these. Can you do it?
Start the day with the love. Fill the day with the love. Spend the day with the love. End the day with the love.
This is the way to God.